Once we definitely decide, it's our job to choose something and to stay committed to it. What I learned is that you kind of have to surrender to the process and trust the process. But if we really sit and think about what does trust the process mean?
All right, welcome to another edition of Living Boldly with Purpose. I'm Dr. B. I'm your host today, and just excited every day that we get the opportunity to talk to people from around the globe that actually are doing things in their life that are with purpose. And so today we'll have Alex on, and Alex is going to talk about some of the things that he's doing on a daily basis to make the world a better place. And Alex, I don't know if you believe the same way as I do, but I believe if you're not serving others, it's really hard to live in purpose. And I think, God put us on this planet to be so that we could do certain things and so that we could be able to affect our fellow mankind in ways that would make their lives better and make their lives even, why they're here, And so I think relationship is one of the most important things that we can do. That relationship is so important to all of our lives. And sometimes, we just, because of technology, because of all the things that happen in our world these days, sometimes we kind of pull apart from our ability to have relationship. And so I'm excited to talk to you today. I'm excited that our audience gets to see what we're talking about and what you're doing, because it is so important that we are able to just be able to be with each other, and the busyness of life, I guess, sometimes stops us from being able to do that. So I'm excited to have you today. Excited that you're going to be talking about your purpose and the things that you're enjoying. I'm asking you, like I do all of our guests, that you start with your story, and your story can start anywhere in your life that you would love for us to understand and hear. And then we'll just chop it up after that with questions and things that we'll do. So go ahead. The floor is yours. It's yours. Please go ahead and share with us who Alex is, not necessarily what Alex does on a daily basis, but who Alex is. So thank you for being on.
Thank you for the beautiful introduction, brother. And I just want to start off by saying, you alluded to the busyness of life. And one of the things that who I am, is that was your main question. Something that I've learned is to slow down amidst that busyness, and to, whether it be simply sitting in silence or to take that meditativeness with us, whatever the activity, whatever our purpose, whatever we're doing, because I believe that we're all called here for a unique purpose. And, it may sound crazy to some of us, but I believe we make that choice even before we incarnate in this physical body. So the key is to really look within for that sense of purpose, because a lot of us may, let's be honest, grow up in an environment where we're conditioned, we're receiving all this different information, and we're so impressionable as young ones from our teachers, from our parents, people we look up to. And as young ones, we have to sort through that muck, and we don't necessarily have the discernment faculty developed yet. So we're very impressionable. And what I've learned is I had to sort through all that and come full circle, so to speak, so that I can look within and discover my purpose. And what you also said is that you believe that God put us on this planet to serve others. Every form of life, in one way or another, is serving something more than itself. And when we live for something beyond ourselves, then life can never lose meaning, because there's no end to serving others. But if your purpose is kind of like a selfish ambition, like I want to accomplish this and do this, and it's all me, then that's never satisfying. That's not a life of fulfillment. And so I used to be that way, and that's why I can speak so candidly and openly about it, because I went through a time where I was just very self-centered, and now I realize that that's not a life of lasting fulfillment. And really, the true joy of life is in serving others. As we are now, as we have this conversation, for the intent is to uplift all those who hear it, so that they can benefit from it. And that's what motivates me on a day-to-day basis, because what wakes us up in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
What's our motivation to get out of bed and to keep on keeping on, right? It's got to be more than, survival-based thinking, because this is just a observation, and it's me being honest, but it seems that a lot of the world is motivated by survival. And once we reach a point on our journey where we're thinking beyond survival, naturally we start looking around to see how this life can benefit and uplift the world around it. And I believe that's all of our purpose. Whatever outward expression or form, our activity, our job, or like whatever that appears as, is different and unique for each person. However, commonly we all share the common ground of wanting and yearning to be one with and connect with and serve the world around us. And one of the ways I do this is through writing and speaking, as I am now, as we are. And I've realized that, the less personality that one is and the more presence they are, the more they're able to be that source of upliftment and inspiration for others.
So kind of walk me through some of the. This is really cool because I love what you're saying, and even you talking about survival is super important. I want to come back to that. But how did you get to the person that you are now? Like, what are some things, because you alluded to that you weren't always a person who thought about others. There was a time that you were selfish. And what does that look like? And what did that transformation look like as you were trying to figure out what fulfillment was even all about?
So personally, I'll try to keep it short, but the story basically is, there was a time I my mom says that I went through my midlife crisis when I was 19,
Okay.
because from about 17 to 19 I was heavy into drugs. I was, smoking weed, drinking, taking all sorts of pills, living a lifestyle that definitely wasn't proud of. I was then. I thought I was the man, full of myself. I got the Dodge Charger. I was dealing drugs, doing all sorts of stuff that now I reflect back on and like, that's crazy, but it served a purpose and to shape me into the character and the man I am today. And I can speak so confidently and openly about it because I don't identify with the past, because I realize that whatever I'm saying now, uh, somebody, the listeners, can relate to it and say, hey, maybe I've been there too. And because we all share the common ground of
Mhm.
whatever our life experiences, we've been through similar emotions and inner experiences that, hey, I'm not alone in this. Somebody else has been through this too. So that's why I'm sharing this with you now. And the fact that I went through that, and when I was 19, I went to jail, and basically it flipped my life upside down, and it got me thinking, and it changed my whole purpose, sense of purpose, which was me-ness, and it was seeking outwardly. Like I said, I had the Dodge Charger, the Versace chain, all this bling and stuff that I realized is empty and meaningless now, because money can't buy happiness, and it certainly can't buy fulfillment. Money can bring comfort to the world around us, and it can, you know, allow us to have a wonderful environment. But in terms of fulfillment, there's a lot of rich and famous people that'll tell you that they're it didn't bring them happiness, and they're still in that outward pursuit. And in the Bible and pretty much all religions, it says the kingdom of heaven is within. That's the common theme amongst all of them. And I'm not religious as far as, identifying with a certain religion. I see the connection in all of them. So I mentioned the Bible, but I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Hindu, a Jew. I don't identify with any of these labels. But the truth that is within all the religions, and that truth that going through that past experience has allowed me to realize, and more so every day, there's always room for growth, and there's never going to be a point on our journey that it's okay to settle and where there's not room to grow.
Mhm.
And so I'm still on that purpose of growth. And going through that past experience has been beneficial in many ways, and especially to realize, hey, all of our purpose, we share this, whatever our role in the world is, that our purpose is to look within for the answers, because there's always that inner guidance and inner fountain source of inspiration that will guide us and lead us and direct us and protect us all along our earthly journey and sojourn. And oftentimes you may think, hey, I know what's best for me. My name's Alex. Alex knows what's best for me. Dr. B knows what's best for him. But oftentimes that's our mind getting in the way of the intelligence within us that truly knows what's best for us. And one of the best ways to get in tune with that is to simply sit in silence and to, like you said in the beginning of the video, we live in a world of busyness, fast paced, the hustle and grind mentality, lifestyle. But if we take time to prioritize that intelligence within us by sitting in silence and being receptive and open to the world around us, then I believe that we can get in tune with our true purpose. And that's unique for each individual, of course. But again, even though there's that uh, factor of being an individual in the world and each playing a role, we still have the common ground of that that same source within all of us. And that's what really gives me purpose, not only to discover this more and more deeply for myself and my own journey, but to share that which I've discovered within with all the world around me. And as I grow accordingly, it benefits all of humanity, because let's be honest, this is one consciousness. The world is simply a reflection, a projection of one's own consciousness. And so if one doesn't have any problems, then they're not going to see any problems in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just an optimistic way of thinking. It's truly a subjective experience, because when you're inwardly feel like you're on purpose and know that you are, then whatever shows up in the world, you can see as in harmony and in contribution to you and your purpose. And so I want this to be a balanced conversation, because I can get off on tangents.
Oh no,
And,
you're doing phenomenal. What I want to ask you though, when I think about identity and who we are and who we believe we are, and you kind of walked us through some different stages of your life where your identity uh, has been changed. Like when you talked about you being 17, and then you talked about where I would love to know who that person was, or what you were you just trying to figure out your way in life, or did you think you were invincible, that nothing could change? And then it sounds like you had an experience where you ended up being incarcerated, and I don't know if that was a shock. Oh, this happened to me because I was invincible, or it was just it was inevitable because you were one of the things you were doing, and you thought, well, someday they'll probably catch me. But because I want to know what that is. And then after that experience, what changed in who you showed up as every morning when you woke up compared to who you were showing up when you were 17? Kind of walk us through this identity changes and what brought those on.
yeah, so definitely a process. It didn't happen overnight. From
Yeah.
let's say the time that I got arrested and when I got out, it was only 10 days, but that 10 days seemed like an
Okay.
eternity. Um and so when I first got out, it just, like I said, it flipped the world upside down. It got me thinking in a different track. So it wasn't just based on survival, because I was puffed up. There was a chip on my shoulder. I
Okay.
thought I was invincible. I thought that, nothing that I can do is going to have a negative consequence. So I was walking around with that arrogance. And I mentioned this in the book too. And there's a little section, it says personal touch. And there's a few articles on the website that delve deep into it just for relatability. So that, hey, the reader or the listener can see, hey, we share this commonality. They may not have been through those exact same experiences, but in terms of emotions and what that allowed me to sort and process through within, we've all been through similar experiences in that regard. So as far as the shift in identity, it was huge for sure, because I was walking around with very concretized and rigid personality about me. Life is here to serve me, and I'm here to get something out of life, as opposed to wanting to serve it, which is where I'm at now. And it's so much more joyous and fulfilling to realize, hey, I'm here to eternally serve, and there's no end to this. Whereas before it was again looking to get something, always worried about how I feel, and now it's more about including uh, everybody else as a part of the joy that it didn't happen overnight. Like I said, it's a process. When I got out of jail, it got me really thinking, and it's been several years, and I'm just excited to see where the journey takes me from here.
Gotcha. Now I know you wrote a book, and I would love to know before we talk about the book, because I want to absolutely do that. I want to know why you wrote a book, or what was that. I'll just let you tell me why, and then I'll ask questions about that. But you decided that it was important that the thoughts that were in your head and in your mind got out for other people to read. Just kind of walk me through that process of what made you think that you should write a book, and then we'll talk about the process of writing it.
Well, it really started off as journaling. So every day
Okay.
I knew that eventually I wanted to write, to manifest a book for everyone else to benefit from. But I didn't really know how to start. And I wanted the process to be authentic and organic. And so I didn't really go online and look up, hey, what is other people's processes? How did they, become successful writer or whatever? I wanted it to be authentic. So I'm like, just practically, what can I do? I can sit down and start journaling. So every day I set aside a 2 hour block of time and said, no matter what, you're going to sit down and write for these 2 hours. However you feel, this is your commitment. So over 3 to 4 years, that journal transformed into a book that is, manifest. And the book's name is Manifest Your Immaculate Conception. And the inspiration for that book was really wanting to share what I've been through so that others can relate with it and see it and benefit from it. And it's, in essence, an extension, a manifestation of that sense of purpose, and to help the reader manifest whatever they're here for, whatever they look within and discover their purpose is. And it's multidimensional. It's hard to sum up in a few words, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, that's good. Um, were you thinking that there was a problem in your own life that needed to be solved? Was it when you decided you were going to publish it and have others read it, there was something that would help them be able to reconcile with their own thoughts and their own minds? What was the thought process of your readers and what they would be reading to help them? Because it sounds like it's on more like the self-help genre than like I guess would be a fiction book where it's just about a story. It sounds like it is a book that is meant for us as the readers to read it and go, aha, maybe I can change my life. What were you thinking in the process as you did that for us to be able to understand as you were writing it?
Well, to be honest, it started off with kind of that same sense of personal ambition. One, like I'm gonna manifest a book, and I want this. I want to do this. But as I stayed committed to the process, after a while, I realized this is not about me. This is not about Alex writing a book and having everybody see that, hey, he can write a book and see what he can do. It transformed into more about holding the reader in mind constantly. And, you know, there was times where I thought, this is the final copy, this is the manuscript, and I'm done. But it just goes to show it wasn't my personal will that's in charge, because I ended up going back and taking a lot of stuff out, editing it, and adding to, and it's it goes to show that, once we definitely decide, it's our job to choose something and to stay committed to it. And once we choose something and we know we're gonna stay on purpose and stay definitely committed to it, what I learned is that you kind of have to surrender to the process and trust the process. That may seem cliche. We hear that so often, right? Just trust the process. And so might go in one ear and out the other. And because we've heard it so many times. But if we really sit and think about that, what does trust the process mean? It means to surrender to it, to realize there's a higher power or intelligence that is actually animating us and allowing us to persist on our personal process and role, whatever that is. And I always think of things in this context, because I'm always conscious of the source within us. What is the source of attention, the source of our energy? What is allowing me to continue along my earthly journey? Because we're all made in such a way that, hey, I'm a piece of creation, you're a piece of creation, we're all a piece of creation. And at the same time, the source of creation, the source of our attention and energy, is throbbing within us. And so creator can't be separated from creation. So whatever manifests outwardly from this individual piece of creation, we see it in the context as, hey, I didn't do this, I'm simply a channel for this. And thus we live our purpose with a sense of bliss, because nothing can sway us from that purpose. As I said previously, everything is seen as in harmony and in contribution to our purpose. So nothing in the world can negatively affect us on our journey. And we see everything and feel everything in terms of that oneness and connectedness. And I know,
Cool.
like I said, I can easily get off on tangents, and I may not necessarily practically be answering your questions directly. This is a free flowing conversation, though, and it's whatever wants to come out, and that's kind of how I roll. And
Yeah, no, so far it's very enlightening. And you said the title of the book is "Manifest Your Immaculate Conception," right? Is that what
yes.
okay, I thought I read it all right. You came with what does that mean, and how is that, like, what should we glean if I'm going to, okay, the title's helping me understand what the book is about, but what are we learning, for me, what does it mean for me to manifest that, my Immaculate Conception? Because when I think of Immaculate Conception, I think of, we're talking about the Bible, and, that, Jesus, was, or Mary was, had Jesus in him as a result of not having, the normal process of how a baby gets into a home. So how does that work for you in this context?
Well, everything we'll break it down word by word. So,
Okay.
manifest. Everything in creation is a manifestation of the same source, right? So, and this is geared towards the reader. So manifest your, meaning the reader, whoever's reading it, to help them manifest their purpose,
Okay.
their conception, because every purpose, every outward expression of purpose is a conception. And with that discernment that, hey, everything in creation is a concept, it first arose as a thought in the mind, then we realize, hey, we see that everything really is an idea. But what is the source of all ideas? And so really the purpose of the book is to point the reader within. And even though they're outwardly reading the book, the whole time it's structured in a way that points them to realize that all answers are within. And immaculate conception, of course, is a common conception. People recognize that uh, as appearing in the Bible. And I want people to think beyond kind of labels and uh, limiting identifications as identify with this religion or this word or that, and to think beyond, you know, an intellectual pigeonhole that I used to put myself in so I can relate to it, and to purge limiting beliefs so that we can see the world very clearly. And that comes with purity. What does immaculate mean but purity? That's what it means. So we want to be an extension of that purity. And when we are, we'll be able to manifest whatever concept we hold in mind effortlessly. It'll be a natural process, and there'll be no worldly interference because we discern and see everything as a manifestation of the one consciousness. Even as we speak now, I said this to somebody the other day, and they kind of were taken back a little bit because I was looking them directly in the eye, and I said, I look you in the eyes, and I see myself. I see the same light in you. And it's a subjective experience. So somebody who, may not be at the same point on their spiritual journey may not feel that profound sense of connectedness and see that everything is actually the one consciousness. And so I said that to the person, and they were kind of like, imagine just telling somebody, looking them in the eyes and saying, I feel like I am you, and just seeing their reaction. But, I can be this and say this and do this because I come from a lighthearted place, in a place of non-resistance, an absolute non-resistance, and nothing in the world can resist a non-resistant person. And where is that non-resistance founded? Within. It's founded within purity. And therefore, to answer your question, the Immaculate Conception has to do with purity. And we don't want to just think of purity in terms of the body, because that can be a distraction. Purifying the body of all sorts of toxins and whatever. That's important because physical is the basis. But we want to also think of purity of purifying the mind of limitations, illusions, and seeming distractions. Because again, there's really no distractions, because when you see as everything in harmony and in contribution to your vision, to your purpose, then there is no interference. There is no distractions. And part of that, what has allowed me to realize this ever more deeply and still continue to realize it more and more so every day, is to prioritize the stillness and the silence.
Mhm.
And it says in the Bible too, be still and know that I am God. That's another very familiar verse
Mhm.
in, like, the immaculate conception. But we don't just want to hear this and again let it go in one ear and out the other. We want to, what does this truly mean, and integrate that into our very being so that we can actually know it. Because knowing something is not just the outward consumption of information. We want to see the world as, everything is information. And so we want to be aware of our mental diet. And to truly know something, we have to integrate it into our character, into our being. We have to be a living example of it. And so to loop back to your question, really the whole idea is purity, to be an
Mhm.
extension and manifestation of that purity, of that immaculate conception, and not to just think of purity in terms of the body or even just the mind. But there's something beyond this that allows us to continue to exist. And the book is really pointing to that source within us in so many different ways, with different words and stories and poems. to help the reader, and in a way, who am I to help anybody? Because the world is as it is, and
Mhm.
it's perfect as it is. But at the same time, when the energy builds up within you, it can't help but to flow out and to seek expression. It's like the ocean. It's never ending. You look out the ocean into the distance, and there's no end to it. Wow, it just keeps going and going and going. And there's no end to this energy within us. And when it builds up in such abundance, naturally you want to include everything, and all of life is a part of your purpose. And that's hence the book, Manifest Your Immaculate Conception. Because I
What?
see that as my immaculate conception, so it can help the reader manifest theirs. That's really the whole idea.
Oh, cool. What's your favorite chapter, and why is it your favorite chapter?
I don't really have a preference as to a favorite.
Okay.
It's all the content and all the information is interrelated. But if I had to say, just to answer your question, I'd say I am. There's a chapter called I am,
Okay.
with a period, because it really uh, gets the reader thinking very deeply, and I know where it came from within. So it puts things in a way, in a context that is definitely not typical or normal. That I don't think you'd find in the average book. So it definitely gets people thinking and reflecting and looking within.
When you think about success, or what it means to be successful in our world, in our lives, what is Alex's version of success? Like when you wake up in the morning, I'm gonna have a successful day. What does that look like? Or maybe you don't think that because there doesn't need to be. But what does success mean to you?
For me, success is a self fulfillment of a self goal. So if today I wake up and my goal is to, let's say, chop down a tree, and by 5 p.m. I want to have that tree chopped down and the wood all split, then if I get that done by 5 o'clock, I'm a success. Nobody in the world has to know about it, but like I said, it's a self goal of self fulfillment. I fulfilled this goal that I wanted to accomplish, and therefore I'm a success. I think commonly people want to think about success in terms of the worldly, like they need something outside of themselves to define them as a success. And I used to think like this. That's why I can relate to it. Like I was saying previously in the video,
Mhm.
like I used to be very outwardly directed and focused, and thinking that money will bring me happiness and success. And of course it's important to be materially affluent, is important, because once that's taken care of, we start thinking beyond it
Mhm.
and realizing, hey, this isn't the source of fulfillment, but the source of stability and happiness and success is always within us, regardless of what's happening around us.
Mhm.
And so to me, success is realizing that lasting happiness. And actually, there's something within us that is beyond happiness and unhappiness. It's the constant. It's something that is changeless. And whatever the outer appearance, there's the flux and change and circumstance, of course. However, the more we become in tune with this eternal source, intelligence, whatever label we want to give it, it to me that is success. And there's no end to it. So we can always evolve and progress ever more deeply on our spiritual journey. And of course, that will be reflected outwardly as success in the world too, because as we grow within, that's reflected in the world around us. And we can much more easily manifest that which we hold in mind because of our power level of consciousness and energy, as we realize that this abundance is always within us eternally.
When I think of like you were saying, meeting your goals are a sign of success that you've met those goals. Do you see like goals as being an important thing that has to happen in order for you to gain fulfillment? Like, do we all need to have set goals that we are going to try to achieve? And then by achieving those goals, and then what, I guess, if that's the case, then what happens to us and who we are if we don't hit those goals?
Goals are very important because what a goal allows us to do, there's this concept called the definite chief aim from the book Think and Grow Rich, and it's commonly known. And I tend not to quote others or refer to other things, but this has been very impactful for me on my journey, and I trust that it will be for everybody, because essentially what that definite chief aim is, it's holding a goal in mind, basically committing to something that nothing is going to sway me from this. I definitely decide upon this, committing to that definite chief aim, because what that allows us to do is to hold that goal in our mind with complete focus and attention. And then we realize that the power lies in the mind, that this goal will manifest to the degree that the rate at which it will manifest in the world is to the degree that of my attention and focus upon it. So what a goal does is it allows us to realize that the power is within, that the power is within the mind, and not to attribute, the power to physical things. Like a lot of people want to, and I used to be like this too, to take a pill and say that this is gonna heal me. But that's really a band-aid solution. It's not getting to the root cause. The cause is within. And what a goal allows us to do practically is to realize that this power is within us and that nothing in the world, nobody can take it away from us. And the more we manifest these goals, the more confidence we have as we continue to live our purpose. And so goals, to answer your question, are very important because they help us to stay on purpose and to not and to be unwavering in one direction, because we might have a bunch of different little goals, but ultimately we all have a very similar spiritual goal. And these little goals are like stepping stones that are leading us to that ultimate goal. And as we realize these goals more and more so, we gain momentum and we gain more energy and propels us along our journey.
So, when I think of the worlds that we live in, and I think there's this invisible world, and I think there is a physical world, and the invisible world is probably to me more of the real world than the physical. Like when you say the word manifestation, I think the physical world is a manifestation of our imaginary or invisible world. Just the fact that you and I are having this conversation. You're in New York, I'm in Denver, Colorado, and I'm not in your computer, and you're not in my computer, but we met ourselves and we're able to have a conversation and talk to each other. But when we think about this invisible world and everything that we think about that could be future related, right? Because there's no real such thing as the present. It's either thinking about what the future is or it's the past. Because as soon as I say this, it's now in the past and there's no longer in the, because it already happened and it's not, so we can think about our future. However, when in our future, everything that we believe is going to happen, we're making up. Because I think it's going to be good or I think it's going to be bad, but I've made it up because we really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I assume that in the next 10 minutes, you and I will still be talking on this conversation, but I don't really know. Something could interrupt it. Something could happen. And so I made up that that's going to happen. How do we realize as we're manifesting in your thought, the things that can truly make a difference, and why do we want them to make a difference? And I know you were just talking about the goals and having these goals that are important to help us get to the ultimate goal, whatever that ultimate goal is. But I guess when I'm thinking of this, either way, I might as well, if I'm going to make something up, I may as well make it up going towards something that I want instead of something that I don't want. And it sounds like in your life, you've had both of those where, the things could happen bad or things could happen good, or they just happen. How do you wake up every day and try to manifest the things that you would want to happen, or realize the things that you want to happen, or set those goals that you want to happen? Did I get way too esoteric?
No, no, it's a great question. It's very in depth, and it can go in many different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, some of the stuff that I say may not seem so practical, and this may be one of them, is when I wake up in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
to prioritize the silence and the stillness, and to sit in that and await guidance, await that presence to guide me in today's activity. Because we all reach a point on our journey where we feel like going back to the beginning of the video, our survival is taken care of. We've manifested, so we thought, all that we wanted. It's all here. It's all here now. So what else is there left for me to do? And what I've realized is that by waking up and so we can label it meditation, by sitting in silence and awaiting that guidance and inspiration, it will definitely follow and it will definitely guide us. And it may have a plan for us, life's plan for us may be completely different than we originally thought it. And you use the word want. Like, of course, we all want what's beneficial for us, beneficial for oneself. And really, it's not selfish that I want what's best for me, because by wanting what's best for me, that's simultaneously wanting what's best for everybody. Because the more I evolve on my journey, the more it's going to benefit all of humanity. And so when I see that as the priority, that invisible world that you speak of, that is more towards the ultimate goal, when we prioritize the silence and that inner guidance, we can transition between the two worlds, and it's effortless, and it's a work in process. And it takes it's not a weakness to submit and to surrender. A lot of masculine guys, and I used to be like this, go in the gym, looking at myself working out, want to get big muscles, and again, outwardly focused, but it's missing the point, because I found that true power lies in surrender and to submitting. And a lot of guys don't want to admit that, to submit to something that is beyond my personal will and what I want. And when we surrender ourselves to that, we don't have to give it a label, or define it or constrict it, because really, you think about in this context, like, as we exist on this planet Earth, right? A tiny planet in the context of the whole Milky Way galaxy. And then think of the fact that there's hundreds of millions and limitless galaxies, and what is the source of all of it? Like, it's crazy to even try to conceptualize and think about. So when we sit in silence, it allows us to get more in tune with this intelligence that's animating everything, and thus reveal our purpose, one's purpose, whatever that is, for them.
How important are relationships?
That's something that I've really had to, and I'm still learning. I'm
Okay,
still
we all
learning,
are.
because I went through a time where
Mhm.
I was living in the middle of the woods and
Really?
complete isolation. Fasted, went through prolonged fasting for 7 days. Several of those days, no food, no water, and so that coming back into the world, into everyday interaction and relationships, I kind of had to relearn a lot of stuff, and I've made it a point recently to be more outgoing, to
Hmm.
make it a point to, when I see people, to say hi, remember their name, and to say, hey, it doesn't have to be a big long conversation, just to acknowledge them and to say hi. Because there was a time when I was just like perpetually silent and not speaking in my own world, so to speak, and really not paying attention to relationships at all. And that was part of the purpose. The intent is to, I'm going to isolate myself and go within. And now I'm bringing that to the world, and to, pay more attention to relationships and to realize the value in them, and that there's a lot of fulfillment in relationships because you're including everything as a part of yourself as you engage in relationships. And for instance, practically right now, I'm living with my grandmother, although I still have, a place about an hour from here in the middle of the woods that I was just referring to. But I'm living with her because grandfather recently passed away, and they were together for 50 years. And grandmother is basically my mom growing up. So she's always done so much for so many other people, and always thinking about people other than herself. And the least I can do is to be here and keep her company, because she's always been surrounded by other people, and especially grandpa, who's been living with her for all these years. So I'm here as that company, and realize that this relationship is important, and it comes from a place of unconditionalness. It's not an attachment. I realize I'm going to live on and exist, when she leaves us, when her physical body leaves us. But in terms of her presence and energy, that'll always be here, that'll never leave. And so I value this relationship because she helps me stay grounded, and I help keep her company, and it's reciprocal, it's mutually beneficial. One hand washes the other, right? So it's something that I've definitely learned to value more so, and realize that it really does help in our fulfillment, because you can't contain all of it. You can't contain all the energy. You got to share it somehow. It's got to express somehow. So, as we are now uh, sharing this conversation,
Yeah.
is an expression of that energy.
I'm super intrigued, and I want to make sure it doesn't sound like this is judgment. I'm seeking to understand, um, because I'm an extrovert and I gain my energy, or I gain my purpose, I guess, through others and through people that I'm around, and people not only that I get to help, but people are helping me. And you say to me, I lived in the woods for 7 days with no food and water. And I want to ask, why would somebody want to do that? What is the fulfillment in being in these woods? Um, and even I can say, okay, it'd be great to be on a solo retreat or something like that, but I would still want water and nourishment. And so what was the reasoning for wanting to fast for 7 days with no water, and then to be in the woods where there's no people, there's nobody to share existence with and life with? And so maybe just kind of help me understand what that's like and why it's so cool.
Well, like I said, I still have that place. It's about an hour from where I'm
You're at
recording
now.
this video now, and so that's still always available. It is literally in the middle of nowhere, right? And what inspired that again is surrender, wanting to surrender to oneself, to a higher power. And
Okay.
what I've realized is one of the most powerful ways to do this is fasting. It's a
Okay.
powerful spiritual tool, because it allows our awareness to focus within. And I didn't go 7 days without, just to kind of correct you a little bit, I didn't go 7 days without water. It was about
Okay.
4 days without water and food, and then introduced water for the last few days. And you know it's been a few times, a few 7-day fasts, but it's not something that somebody does one time and say that's it. It's a lifestyle because I realize the power in it. And so I believe in regular fasting. Every week, a 24-hour fast. Uh, every month, a 3-day fast. You know, and the compound effect of that, it builds up because it allows the eternal energy to build up within us. And to answer your question, what inspired that really is surrender. Because I realized that, hey, there is something beyond me and my personal desires. And one of the most common desires is for food, for nourishment. Like you said, the word you use, physical nourishment. And, and another common desire is, interaction with people. And you said you gain energy from that interaction, and you do because it's reciprocal. Again, it's mutual. You're feeding energy into each other, and there's there's no denying that when you're sharing life with the world around you. uh, it benefits everybody, but we see this more clearly and we value it ever more deeply when we take the time to remove ourselves and detach ourselves. And also, I want to say that, life is not just in people. People are wonderful, and human being is the highest expression on this planet of the life source. But life is in everything. Life is in nature, is in the woods. So you isolate yourself, you realize that, hey, the same source of life is in the big city. It's also in the middle of nowhere. And you feel that connectivity with nature when you kind of remove yourself from, you know, daily habits or things that you're used to doing all the time to get out of your comfort zone. Um, allows us to really discover more deeply that, what truly brings us here and to focus inwardly. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, you did. I just, as I think through it, I kind of have this imagination that you're like gone for like 6 months and you're just in the woods and you come back with, and I'm sure that's not what you're doing, but that was, as I think through, because there's one time when I was, I went out on a solar retreat with a whole bunch of people and we went to 24 hours where we were by ourselves for 24 hours. And I ran out of stuff to think about. And after about 16 hours, I'm like, I gotta sleep. I gotta do something. Or there's people I gotta talk to. What do we do? I get, and I was playing with wood. Then I started talking to squirrels and nature. Just, it was just so hard for me to just sit there. I had a journal and I could write in my journal, but then I know I can't read my writing. So I'm thinking like, what could I just have a tablet or something that I could talk to that, so it's just to imagine that and to gain. But I know that there has got to be a lot of healing and a lot of, just like you said, self-reflection where you get to understand you better in that situation. And so I applaud it. I just was just super curious as to why. Um, as we kind of wind down on our time here, and there's things that I don't know if there's something that you want to make sure that all of us get to know about what you want to express, or how to get your book and how to get a hold of you, and maybe your final closing thoughts as to what we missed that we didn't get to talk about, the questions that I didn't ask. I would love for you to kind of share with those with us now.
Well, something we didn't talk about that's been very uh, influential and potent and powerful on my journey
Mhm.
is celibacy. I, about 3 years ago, a few days off, but right actually about 3 years ago, I made a definite commitment of celibacy, which means no sex, and I also included no meat eating, no intoxication, and no gambling. So basically, worldly activities. But committing to celibacy has allowed me to realize the eternal energy, and it builds up within you and it compounds within you. And it's definitely very powerful. And it, we want to realize as men that everybody, all of us, in terms of our physical existence, come from one semen cell. The semen is the basis of our physical existence. And when we don't release this energy within us, it builds up and it recycles and it compounds and it rejuvenates and regenerates the body and our mentality and all parts of our journey, because we can't separate the body from the mind, from our emotions, from the spirit, from our thoughts and feelings and everything. It's all interconnected. And when this energy builds up within us as men, it, naturally we live boldly with purpose, because we can easily assert ourselves. We can be blunt and to the point, but at the same time with sincerity and without feeling like we're forcing ourselves or imposing ourselves on the world around us. And so abstinence, that's really one thing that we didn't touch on, that is big in the book, big on the YouTube channel. And like I said, all the information is related and connected. And that's really what has allowed me to progress exponentially on my journey is celibacy. So I definitely want to make sure that we
That
mention
we
that.
mention it and talk about. So, do those desires continue to be there, and you just have to be, cut that off from your beliefs and your, or does it just get easier, with this celibate life, or it just allows you to have this different change of energy, so it is being able to put into, like you said, your purpose and your boldness.
So it started off, it wasn't easy. And that's just being honest. As we all have sexual instinct, that desire. And as a young man, that energy is definitely very active. But so I had to consciously realize that, hey, I got to transmute this energy. I got to redirect it into something that is beyond me, beyond satisfying the body and its fleshly desires. Because if we think of sex in this context, that hey, it's over in a few minutes. Uh, it's kind of like satisfying a nervous itch. Uh, because if we've ever had this before, we had that desire. If we simply sit with it and don't act on it and observe it, it'll go away. But nowadays, with the media, and you go out in the world and everything's trying to get our attention and to pull us in this direction, and there's all these images that stimulate us if we pay them attention. And so to kind of remove yourself from, to be conscious of that environment and your mental diet, as I was saying before, and to prioritize this eternal energy, and to realize what's temporary, that hey, I satisfy this desire, but it's temporary. It's over. Over in a few minutes or a few hours at best, right? So when we think in terms of our eternal essence, that which is already within us, naturally it becomes an easier and easier process. Like I said, to answer your question, it didn't start off that way. I had to overcome a lot of things, and because the energy was in a downward flow, but now it's in an upward flow. It's an upward flow towards the brain, so it becomes easier and easier as you progress along the journey. And the key is to make a definite choice, a definite commitment, and never fall back on it. Say, like I said, it's a vow. It's not a vow of self-denial. It's not that I'm denying myself of a pleasure. It's just that I realize that there's a higher pleasure, and this higher pleasure is eternal. And once you make that definite commitment to stay with it and unwavering in one direction, and it'll get easier and easier. And a lot of guys might think it's if you would have told me, as a young guy, like I was saying before, when I was doing drugs, dealing drugs, all this stuff, that to weed that out, that you're never gonna not only not have physical sex again, but not even desire it mentally, to purge that desire from the mind eternally. I would have thought you're crazy. I would have been like, there's no way. Like, and some guys listening to this might think it's crazy, but I'm telling you, it's possible because I know, because I'm living proof of it. And I don't say that with arrogance, you know. I
Yeah.
say that because I really want people to understand that, hey, anything I can do, you can do. And St. Francis of Assisi said, if God can work through me, he can work through anybody. So
Yeah.
it's not that I'm extraordinary. It's just that I made a definite choice and I stuck with it. And now I'm living proof of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. How can folks get a hold of you if they would like to? Where's your channel? That kind of stuff.
So as mentioned, the book is Manifest Your Immaculate Conception. There's a website. There's also a YouTube channel called Practice Being.
Mm-hmm.
And on that YouTube channel, there's a link, like on the channel description, there's a link to the website, to the book. The book's on Amazon and a bunch of other retailers and whatnot. So, like I said, all the information is connected. So if you see something that you really resonate with, then no, there's no end to it. I'm gonna continue to, be a channel for whatever wants to come through.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for being on today. The website is Practice Being, and is it practicebeing.com or is it just a YouTube channel?
The YouTube channel is Practice Being, and
Oh,
that's
Practice
actually
Being.
my
Okay,
only
gotcha.
social media because creating. So I got rid of all the other social medias because it was a distraction. I was
Yeah,
just
that's so smart.
mindlessly scrolling on Facebook, and I was like, "Wow, where's the time going?"
Where's the time
But
go? So smart, so smart. Yeah, because we can be distracted so easily, and I love that. So you go on your YouTube, hit Practice Being. Alex, it has been a pleasure to talk to you, to understand you, to just understand your world and the things that you're doing. And thank you for writing the book. I'm sure it's going to help a lot of folks that are out there. I love the fact that you're living in purpose and you're doing it. For those that got a lot out of this and you have somebody that you know would benefit from watching this, go ahead and share it with them. It is okay to share the things that you think impact you with other people, and whether they take that and go, oh, this is the greatest thing ever, or they just take that and go, hey, it wasn't that much for me. At least you offered it. And so many times that's what we don't do, is we don't offer people other things that we know that could help them, and then we get mad if they don't do it. So don't do that. Just do it because you love them. Go ahead and hit subscribe. We have so many different guests that are talking to us almost on a daily basis, trying to get out one at least 5 days a week, where you have the opportunity to hear from other people and what they're doing to fulfill their lives. And so thank you. I believe you're God's greatest gift, and he loves you if you allow him to. And we will look forward to talking to you guys on the next one. Have an amazing, incredible day. Alex, it has been a blessing. I am just enthralled with just your thought process. I want to go out to the woods and just sit with it for, I'm not going to make it 7 days, at least the first time, but maybe I can make it 2 and really be able to understand who I am. So thank you for that and showing that it can be done, which is huge when we think through the process. So again, thank you. Anyone last closing thought?
you say amen, brother. Thank you for the beautiful introduction, beautiful closure, and again, having me on here. Because if you didn't send me the invite, I wouldn't have been able to accept it, and we wouldn't have been able to share this with others that can benefit. So thank you again, and God bless anybody who, especially listening to this point in the video. Thanks for watching to the end.
All the way through, exactly. Have a wonderful day, you guys.